Throughout baseball's long history, cheating has always been an unfortunate part of the game. From doctoring baseballs to corked bats to steroids, cheating has always been woven into baseball's history. But a form of cheating in baseball that has rose to prominence in the last few years thanks to an incident involving a certain team from Texas is sign stealing. More specifically, using technology to aid in the sign stealing efforts. While sign stealing will forever be associated with the Houston Astros, perhaps baseball's most iconic play can also be associated with sign stealing, but it's often overlooked.
Totally sports-esque. Major League.
It's only cheating if you get caught.
On August 11th, with 44 games left in the season, the New York Giants trailed the Brooklyn Dodgers by 13 games for first. And in this time, there were no wild cards, there were no divisions, it was simply whoever won the American League and whoever won the National League competed in the World Series for the ultimate crown. So as the Associated Press put it, unless the Dodgers completely fold in their last 50 games, they're in. And over the next few weeks after those words were printed, it wasn't necessarily a case of the Dodgers folding, it was more of a case of the Giants playing out of their mind. Starting on August 12th, the Giants would win 16 straight, and 17 of their final 19 games in August. And after the Giants swept the Dodgers in a 2-game series to start September, the Giants were within 5 games. Fast forward 2 weeks to September 18th, the Giants were 30-6 since August 12th. Though they would lose their next game against the Reds, the Giants would not lose again in the regular season, giving them a 37-7 record over their final 44 games, including 9 out of their final 10. And for the Dodgers in those final 10 games, they lost 6 out of 10, resulting in a tie for first place in the National League. And this meant one thing: play-in game. Except, well, it was actually a play-in 3-game series. To decide home field advantage, there was a coin flip, which the Dodgers won. And surprisingly, they decided against home field advantage and elected to play the first game at Ebbets Field in Brooklyn, and Game 2 and if necessary, Game 3 at the Polo Grounds. There's no definitive reason why they made this decision, but it's reason that they figured after an easy win in Brooklyn, they would just have to beat the Giants once at the Polo Grounds. And in a sense, the strategy of winning at least one game in the Polo Grounds worked, as in Game 2, they beat the Giants 10-0, with home runs hit by Jackie Robinson, Andy Pafko, Rube Walker, and Gil Hodges, with a shutout pitched by Clem Levine. The problem here was that the Dodgers lost the first game at their home field 3-1, after a great performance by Jim Hearn on the mound, and home runs by Monte Irvin and Bobby Thompson. So with the series tied 1-1, millions of fans across the country would gather around radios, crowds, and watch on this new thing called television, as the Giants and Dodgers faced at the Polo Grounds at 1:30 p.m. on October 3rd, 1951, with a chance to face the Yankees in the World Series. In the do-or-die Game 3, on the mound for the Giants was All-Star Sal Maglie, and for the Dodgers was 3-time All-Star and future MVP Don Newcombe, and right away, the Dodgers would get on the board in the top of the first after 2 walks given up by Maglie. That led to the game's first run being scored on a Jackie Robinson single. The game would remain 1-0 until the bottom of the 7th after a Monte Irvin double, a Whitey Lee sac bunt, and a Bobby Thompson sac fly that would tie the game. The following half inning would be where the Dodgers broke free. After singles by Pee Wee Reese and Duke Snider, Maglie would throw a wild pitch, allowing Reese to score and giving the Dodgers a lead. The Dodgers would tack on 2 more runs that inning to give them a 4-1 lead. And after Don Newcombe would set the Giants down in order the next inning, the Dodgers had a 97% chance of winning the game. The chances would drop down to 91% after Larry Jansen pitched a 1-2-3 top of the 9th, but still, the odds were great. Don Newcombe would take the mound in the bottom of the 9th inning with a pitch count of 90, hoping to finish a complete game and send the Dodgers to their second World Series in 3 years. And what is remarkable about Newcombe coming out to try and finish the game is just 4 days earlier against the Phillies, he pitched a complete game. Then the next day, Newcombe pitched 5 2/3 innings of relief. Some accounts say that Newcombe attempted to take himself out of the game after the 8th, but Jackie Robinson told him to pitch until his arm falls off. Newcomb himself would say he never asked to be relieved, and other accounts would back the statement up, but nonetheless, Newcomb went out to the mound in the bottom of the ninth and immediately got into trouble. Alvin Dark hit a leadoff single, and after the decision to hold the runner on instead of getting into double play position created a gap in the right side of the infield that Don Mueller took advantage of, there were runners on the corners with no outs. And to add to the pain that comes from a mistake, Monte Irvin would foul out the next at bat. And if the Dodgers were to be in double play position, it can only be assumed that this Irvin foul out would end the game. But it didn't, and Whitey Lockman would hit a double down the left field line to drive in a run and put runners on second and third. And finally, Chuck Dressen would take Don Newcomb out of the game. And into the game would come Ralph Branca to face the guy who had a game-winning home run off him in the first game, Bobby Thompson. On deck was a rookie named Willie Mays, and though Mays went 0 for 3 against Branca in the first game, Dressen did not want to put the winning run on base, and feared a veteran would pinch hit for him anyway, so Bobby Thompson was given an opportunity that he took advantage of. After taking the first pitch for a strike, Thompson would connect with the second pitch, sending it down the left field line. And next would come one of the most iconic calls in sports history, made by Giants announcer Russ Hodges, and a call that only exists today because a Brooklyn fan asked his mother to tape record the last half inning so he could hear the Giants cry. But instead of Giants tears, he heard Hodges yell out the famous line, "The Giants win the pennant," 5 times in joy as Bobby Thompson hit a walk-off 3-run home run to send the Giants to the World Series. The fans went crazy, the players went crazy, and this woman did this for some reason. Thompson was mobbed by his teammates, while the Dodgers defeatedly made their long walk to the clubhouse, in center field. That is, except Jackie Robinson, who stayed and watched to make sure Thompson touched every base, and spoiler alert, he did. Bobby Thompson would become a hero for Giants fans and live in sports lore forever. His dramatic home run would become known as the shot heard around the world, a reference to a line in Ralph Waldo Emerson's poem Concord Hymn that described the opening shot of the Battle of Concord. The Giants would eventually lose the World Series in 6 games to the Yankees, who won their 3rd of 5 straight titles, but the Giants would later get to stand atop the league in 1954 after defeating Cleveland. And the Dodgers would finally defeat the Yankees in their 6th try to capture the title just a year later in 1955. Though the Giants would not win the World Series that year, Thompson's home run would live on in baseball infamy. And it's not just for the home run itself, it's the insane run the Giants went on that led to that moment. As Jackie Robinson told the Giants when him, Pee Wee Reese, Duke Snider, and Preacher Rowe went to the Giants clubhouse to congratulate them, "I just want you to know that we didn't lose the pennant. You guys won it." And that is the absolute truth. The Dodgers went 24-20 over the final 44 games, and given that they started the stretch with a 13-game lead, the Dodgers would not necessarily be thrilled with that record, but they would probably just assume they had the league locked up. But they ran into a team that had everything going their way, and that includes the coin flip that they lost. That decision to forego home field advantage became a huge reason Bobby Thompson's home run is still remembered to this day. If Twitter was around in this time, and we had the 1951 version of Would It Dong, well, in Ebbets Field, Thompson's iconic shot wouldn't dong. So as we see here, when a team goes on an insane stretch, there are so many factors that go into it. But we need to go back to late July and look at a factor that could change Jackie Robinson's statement of the Giants won the pennant to the Giants stole the pennant. Stealing signs in itself has always been a part of the game of baseball. If an opposing player is able to crack the code of what pitch the catcher is calling or what signal the coach gave to a player, then the only thing a team can do from then on is to come up with new signs, or find better ways to keep it a secret. Sign stealing in the traditional way is not illegal, but using the aid of technology, as anyone who has paid attention over the last 4 years would know, is illegal. And while technology-aided sign stealing has become big news over the last few years, it's actually been in the game for over 100 years. The first known case was that of the Phillies from 1897 to 1900. They had an underground wire from the clubhouse in center field to the first base coach's box. Someone in the clubhouse would send an electrical signal, and depending on the vibration the coach felt, he would send a signal to the batter in the box to let them know what was coming. The scheme would become unraveled on September 17, 1900, when a player on the Reds got his spikes tangled and discovered the buried electrical box being used. Though some teams consider retaliation, ultimately, the Phillies were not punished for this, setting the precedent that sign stealing was fine unless technology was in play. There wasn't a known case of a plan as elaborate as the Phillies had from the time of 1900 to 1951, though teams such as the Indians and the Cubs began to make use of the telescope. Both teams in the late 40s began looking in at signs with a telescope from the scoreboard, and relaying the signs with physical cues. The methods used by these teams became important for the Giants in late June of 1951, when utility infielder Henry Shenz came to the team from the Pirates. Before he was on the Pirates, Shenz was on the Cubs, and part of his duties were to hide in the scoreboard at Wrigley Field and steal signs from opponents using a telescope. And when Shenz revealed this to Giants manager Leo Durocher, it was sweet music to his ears. Durocher was a controversial figure in baseball who wanted to win at any cost. We can look no further than the statement "nice guys finish last" came from a condensed quote he made about the Giants in 1946 when he was the Dodgers manager. He told journalists, "The nice guys are all over there, in 7th place." The quote was rendered to "nice guys wind up in last place." So Durocher did not see the revelation as an upsetting truth, but rather as an opportunity. And the Polo Grounds gave the Giants a great opportunity. The horseshoe shape of the Polo Grounds situated the clubhouse in center field. And as the Giants were situated in 3rd place, Durocher let the team know how fortunate they were to play in this park and how they were going to take advantage of their desperate situation. The plan went like this. Since the Polo Grounds was the only park with the bullpens in fair territory along the outfield walls, a Giants batter could easily shift their eyes towards the bullpen to Sal Evars, who became known as the designated signaler. And the signals were pretty simple. If Sal held up a baseball, it was a fastball. If he flipped the ball in the air, it meant a breaking pitch. So Sal was the 1951 version of the trash banger. But if Sal was in the bullpen and the telescoper was in the clubhouse, how did these signs get relayed? Just like the 1897 Phillies and the falsely accused 2019 Jose Altuve, they used a wire. And ironically, that wire was set up by diehard Dodgers fan Abraham Chadwick. And the work was done on July 19th. During a storm that caused all games on the East Coast to be canceled. The next series for the Giants would go great. They would score 26 runs and take 3 out of 4 against the Reds, bringing them to within 8 games of the Dodgers. But up next for them was a 17-game road trip, and during this trip, they would go a measly 9-8, including ending the trip losing 3 games to the Dodgers, putting them 13 games behind and causing the Associated Press to make the statement we heard earlier, and bring us to August 11th. The Giants realized something when they came back home on that August day. They needed to fix a bug in their system. That bug was the Henry Shenz. While he was a main reason in this plan coming to life, he wasn't great at discerning the complex signs and gestures between pitchers and catchers. So the Giants swatted Shenz away and put their third base coach Herman Franks behind the 35mm Wallensack telescope in center field, and Leo Durocher took over as a third base coach. Franks was a former major league catcher who played for 4 different teams, so naturally, he would have a better chance of cracking the complex pitcher-catcher code. And when the Giants got back from their road trip on August 11th, though they lost that first game, we know that they began to play out of their minds. And after the Giants went on a 17-2 run to finish August, then scored 19 runs in 2 games against the Dodgers to start September, the first place Dodgers became suspicious. Dodgers manager Cookie Lavagetto told Harvey Rosenfield in his 1990 book The Great Chase in regards to those 2 games in September, "We took binoculars out on the bench to observe center field. Then the umpire spotted us. He ran over and grabbed those binoculars from us. There was nothing we could do. We told the ump that we were just trying to observe center field. Whatever Durocher had out there, he had a good system." But the question here is, how good was this system and how much of a difference did this system make? Of course, we know that their record was incredible, but was the system they devised the main factor that led to this historic moment? Well, there are some stats discovered by RetroSheet's founder David Smith that make it a little fuzzy. After July 20th, the Giants went 24-6 at home and 27-12 on the road. Without these road wins, they obviously would not get a chance to win the pennant. But when we look past their home-away record and onto the stats, interestingly, the Giants hit better on the road than at home. And from the time before July 20th and after, the Giants decreased their home batting average by 10 and increased their away batting average by 17. And interestingly, the eventual hero, Bobby Thompson, raised his average 105 points after July 20th. And when we look at the Giants pitching, we also see an interesting stat. Before July 20th, the Giants pitching staff had a home ERA of 3.47 and a road ERA of 4.49. After July 20th, they had a home ERA of 2.9 and a road ERA of 2.93. A stat that ultimately is more important on paper in seeing how the Giants made this unsurmountable comeback. And these polarizing stats amidst a cheating scandal draws its comparisons to the Houston Astros. The 2016 through 2018 Astros used a system very similar to the teams of the past. As many know, they used cameras to decipher signs, and they would relay these signs by banging on a trash can once or twice for a breaking ball and 0 times for a fastball. They also relayed signs in the dugout to send to players on second base to send to the batter. And of course, we know that the Astros would go on to win the World Series in the year they used this system full time. But just like the Giants in 1951, there are some interesting stats that make things not look crystal clear. The first is that during this year, the Astros had a better average in OPS in away games than at home, along with scoring more runs, driving in more runners, and recording more hits. And research found by William Krenzer and Eric Splan found that only Jake Marisnick had a massive increase in his home-away splits, even though he ranked 7th on the total bangs chart. The research found by Krenzer and Splan also found in pitch outcomes, only the amount of balls had any real increase. And this is probably due to the fact that if you know a breaking ball is coming, you know there's a better chance it's not landing in the strike zone. But when we look at the Astros pitching, they actually pitch better at home than they did in away games. Maybe this is just because pitchers in general pitch worse on the road, but the logical reason why the pitching staffs of the 2017 Astros and the 1951 New York Giants got better may be a psychological one. Everyone on the mound had to know that no matter how well they performed, if their offense knows what pitch is coming, they're probably going to get a lot of help. This can help pitchers relax, take pressure off them, and give them reassurance after a bad outing. But no matter the psychological factors or the advanced stats, the main defense given by the Astros and the Giants is that they still had to hit the ball even if they knew what was coming. The pitchers still had to pitch great. The defense had to make plays. The manager had to make right decisions, and they had to score more runs than the other team. But the best comeback to this is that even if the system helped these teams win even one game, then it's a very big deal. While one game wasn't a big deal for the Astros as they won their division by 21 games, for the 1951 New York Giants, one of baseball's most iconic moments would not happen if they lost even one more game. And what if the Dodgers investigated the Giants further in early September, or teams that were suspicious of the Astros during this time looked further into it? How would this system being taken away affect the Giants and the Astros? Of course, we will never be able to answer that question, but we can try to answer another question in this scenario. Why are the 1951 Giants and Bobby Thompson still beloved to this day, while the Astros became the most hated team in sports afterwards? Clearly, a lot of this has to do with the times. Though rumors speculated throughout the league that the Giants were cheating, the first report of this didn't come out until 1962. In an article by the Associated Press that didn't go into great detail and was brought upon by an anonymous source. And interestingly, just 1 year prior, the MLB officially outlawed sealing signs with the use of optical or mechanical aid. So an argument could be made that the Giants weren't technically breaking any rules, though the ethics argument could be brought up. Another huge factor is that this entire system wasn't really brought into the light until 2001. 50 years after the events transpired. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, 21 members of the 1951 Giants who were still alive just straight up admitted that they were using a telescope and a buzzer and that it made a huge difference. And Ralph Branca, who gave up the home run to Thompson, said in regards to why he wasn't more vocal about the incident, "I didn't want to diminish a legendary moment in baseball. I didn't want to look like I was crying over spilled milk." And the passage of time and social media not being there to blow things out of proportion was probably the best thing that happened to the Giants in regards to the scandal. Though Thompson repeatedly denied using the system on his famous home run, Branca probably didn't want to spend the rest of his life bitter. He even added, and even if Bobby knew what was coming, he had to hit it. In acknowledging the importance of the passing of time, if Mike Fiers waited until the year 2067 to tell us that the Astros were banging on trash cans, though I don't know what the world would be like in 2067, I doubt there would be as much of an uproar as there was when the story first broke in late 2019. Another thing to focus on and a parallel between these two teams is that they both weren't the only two teams using resources to steal signs. The 1951 Giants system was devised from past experiences of the Cubs and Indians. In 2017, just like 1951, it wasn't just one team stealing signs. But the difference between the 1951 Giants and the 2017 Astros is that their schemes were more advanced and produced results. And both of these teams gave us iconic moments. Bobby Thompson's walk-off home run and Alex Bregman's walk-off single in Game 5 were legendary moments in their time. And though both teams used systems before these moments, there is debate on if the systems were used on these particular plays. Bobby Thompson has repeatedly denied knowing what pitch was coming, saying that he was too busy concentrating on the magnitude of the moment to look over to the bullpen. And on Alex Bregman's walk-off, the idea of banging on the trash can was not possible in this time due to the loud atmosphere of the playoffs. But there is wide speculation that the Astros were using whistles to signal what pitch was coming during the playoffs instead of the trash can. And to be fair here, Kenley Jansen basically throws one pitch, and that night, 31 of the 33 pitches he threw were cutters. So maybe the Astros didn't feel they needed to look in at this time. But no matter if Bobby Thompson or Alex Bregman received the signal on this exact pitch, the fact of the matter is, neither of them would be in this situation if it wasn't for the sign stealing the team engaged in prior. And whether it's the 2017 Astros World Series or Bobby Thompson's iconic home run in the 1951 Giants' incredible comeback to win the pennant, these moments are only tarnished if you want them to be, because obviously the MLB doesn't think so. You can bring in the argument that the team still had to hit the ball and win the game, or they were just taking full advantage of what they had and could do. But nonetheless, these both remain one of the many known incidents of cheating in baseball. But the reactions from the leagues, media, and fans, and the incidents themselves make you wonder if other iconic moments in sports may have come as a result of some form of cheating. Of course, there's the ones we know about, but we can only assume that maybe there were teams that were as good at winning as they were at covering things up. Or maybe teams or players cheated as a last resort, and it still wasn't enough. But at the end of the day, just remember, the best way to cheat is to not get caught.